All right, we are back with another Scale with Pros episode, and today I have a very special guest, Amy Sangster, and she is the CEO, co-founder of Member Up, and she has a really amazing, story in business and entrepreneurship, and she's just done some really amazing things. So I'm excited for this episode to get into, your background a little bit, Amy, on how you've built the different companies that you have built, and have you kind of share some of the trials that you've went through along this journey,
They've
and
been many.
yeah. So it should be a good time, but would love for you, before we kind of dive into some questions around scaling, building teams, and things around that, would love for you to share with everyone your story. How the heck did you get into entrepreneurship? It was kind of that first journey
Yeah.
that's led you into now where you're at, and with Member Up, and what you're building today.
Yeah. So it all began back in 2012, to give you the cliff notes. But I posted a YouTube video. There was a little bit before that. I was working at a bank, I was studying finance, and I always
Yeah.
knew that I wanted a life that was different to most. And so I figured, oh, I'll study finance. Surely that'll teach me how to, create funds that allow me to live that life. And little did
Hmm.
I know at the time it would teach me how to be an employee at a bank. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I absolutely hated it. And I was like, there's got to be more than this. So I did the traditional thing. I went to all the personal development seminars and read all the books and was just looking for basically anything that could get me out of that. And that led me down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes. I was doing eBay business. I did day trading for a while. I was getting my hands in anything that I could, just trying to learn what was
It's
ultimately going to
testing
get me out.
stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So the eBay thing actually took off. I made six figures on eBay. I started trading with that money. I had a friend that was into trading, and
Yeah.
he taught me the ropes there, and that did pretty well as well. But it all kind of changed when I was watching YouTube one night, manifesting as we do. I know you're a car guy. Back then, I
Yes.
was a car girl. And I wanted an Audi R8 at the time. And so I was like watching YouTube videos, and I saw a guy that had an Audi R8, and he was young as well. And I reached out to him. And fast forward about a year, we fell in love. He lived in America. I lived in Australia at the time. And yeah, I live in America now. I came over here to visit him, and we started making YouTube videos together. I bought a Lambo, and that video went viral on YouTube, for better or for worse. And 100 million people saw our videos. So that was kind of my foray into the online world, so to speak. And from there, I never really envisioned that I'd end up in coaching or education. But naturally, when you share a video like that, you have a whole bunch of people that, on the one hand, give you hate, and on the
Yeah.
other hand, are asking how you did it. So I developed my first online course. I did it all the wrong ways. I took a year to build the thing. It was all like horrible text-based course, but naturally, just the size of the audience, it did really well. And from there, I went to learn, the digital marketing side of things, and how to actually run the business behind all of that. So grew that to nearly eight figures over the next 8 years. And when I was about 28, 29, I decided that I wanted a new a new version of myself to come to life, a new challenge. And it was about COVID time, I went for a walk with two girls in my neighborhood,
Hmm.
and they were actually the co-founders of Boss Babe, if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
It's a big female entrepreneurship brand. And we started working together. I kind of became a growth consultant for their company using everything I'd learned in my first business. And then that led me to what I'm doing now, which is Member Up, because between the two businesses, I'm sure you've seen the same thing, we had duct taped together all these different softwares to make it work. We did
Yeah.
Kajabi, Facebook groups, Slack, like just trying to make it all work together, and it was a nightmare. So that led me to just building the solution I wish I had, which is Member Up, where it's, community, content, events, payments, chat, all in one simple, beautiful place. So that's kind of my high level cliff notes, of how I got here today, but it's had many twists and turns along the journey for sure.
Yeah, man. So cool. I mean, the beginning of the story, moving from Australia to the United States, from a random outreach, to someone, like that's just like I guess it's like almost serendipitous of like just that happening, that then,
Yeah.
the ripple effect of then everything else that, happened after.
It's crazy to think the difference that one decision can make. And I'm sure you can look back in your own life too and identify, like, man, if I hadn't have done that one thing, I could have been on a completely different trajectory. So it was
Yeah.
definitely something was in the works behind the scenes to make me actually get on a plane and come over here, because it changed everything.
Yeah, so cool. So now, you built the thriving, education business, and now you've are you still doing the education business, or now the main focus is just member up?
Yeah, so interestingly, I thought that when I started building Member Up, I would be kind of done with coaching. And what's interesting is that actually, even though we're selling a software platform, we're teaching creators how to essentially build communities, profitable communities. And so we can provide them software, but if we don't actually help them with the business strategy side of things as well, then they're far less successful with the software. So although I thought I'm just going to focus solely on software and be the provider of this platform, what we learned is that we can actually help our customers far more if we use all of our skills in the business and coaching side of things as well to help educate them in building more successful businesses on the platform. So it's kind of a hybrid now where, yes, we're building the software, me and my co-founders, and we both have successful education businesses as well.
Hmm.
That our customers, end up using MemberUp, but also MemberUp customers tend to also need a lot of the business strategy help inside of things as well. So they go hand in hand right now.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Super cool. So, okay, I wanna ask, like, a lot of people, most businesses, they never actually get to $1 million a year in revenue. That's one of the challenges that, I think it's like 3 or 4% of businesses in the US actually get to $1 million plus a year in revenue. Obviously you've surpassed that significantly. What do you think it is that people need to be doing different to get to that first, 7 figures a year in revenue? Like, what are some of the trends that you see over and over again that cause businesses to be able to get to that point versus the ones that don't?
It's a good question, and there's so many different ways that I could answer it. But I think the biggest thing is learning to ignore your feelings, which probably probably sounds unhealthy, but I swear it's not. But learning to differentiate what is a feeling and what is a fact in business, because as
Mm,
you know, whenever you're building anything, there will be points where it feels like you're not successful, where it feels like things are really challenging. It feels like I should make a different decision or I should react to this. But in reality, it's maybe just one customer that's saying something, or in
yeah.
reality, it was just one bad month and you don't need to go change your entire business model. So I think for me, being that I naturally had a personality type, and I love the Myers Briggs, I don't know if you're into to personality types, which really helps with hiring too down the road.
Yeah.
But I was someone that was naturally an F, meaning I made decisions with my feelings. I had to learn, I've become a T over the years, to make decisions with my thoughts instead of my feelings. And I think that that is a trap that so many entrepreneurs fall into, is that they become successful doing one thing and then they feel a certain way and then they completely change the way that they were doing business to feel something different. So
Mm,
I think viewing your business through the lens of data, not emotion, is probably one of the biggest things that you have to learn, because entrepreneurs are, we're feelers. We're building something because we have this big vision and we're
yeah.
excited about it. But then the monotony of just scaling something kicks in. And oftentimes I think people even just want like a sense of excitement again. So they go and build a new offer, which then dilutes their focus on what they're currently
Yeah.
doing. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson, is learning to have discipline with the way that you're thinking and feeling, for sure.
I love that answer because I think a lot of people do, get themselves in a position where they're just so stuck in, the way they feel in the business that day. And, I think to your comments of like the data, and the more you can make decisions from data, the more accurate decisions you're going to make.
Yeah.
We, one of the companies I bought last year is this, residential cleaning company. And, we were on a team meeting about a week ago, and one of the customer service gals was, going on about how we should, change our process for this part of like this customer service fulfillment part, because she had this like super irate customer, and blah
Yeah.
blah blah, all the feelings that go with upset
Yeah.
customers. And so then when it moved into this discussion, we run our businesses on EOS, so it's like in the issue section, and she's just going on, and everyone's like, all right, how could we change the way we do this process, da 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 da. And I was like, guys, hang on, like, before we change our entire way that we serve, these customers, like,
Yeah.
what's the sample size that we're actually looking at for, this specific problem
Exactly.
that's occurring,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's all low ticket stuff as far as like the cleaning services, a couple $100 services, but we did, about 1,200 homes that month in services.
Right.
And I was like, how many customers did this type of issue happen with? And, she's like, oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm like, okay, well, let's take a moment, like, go check at that, pull up the data. and it was like 4 customers. And I'm like, so are we really going to change our entire process over
Yeah.
4 of our 1,200 previous, last month's customers? And everyone was kind of like, oh yeah, that's crazy. Like, I was like, I'd rather fire those 4 customers and we just don't have those 4 customers than change our entire fulfillment engine of how we're actually doing our business?
Absolutely. And I think it feels so challenging, right? Because no one loves an angry customer, and every
No.
single business model has them at some
Yes,
point in
yes.
time. So it feels really challenging, especially if you care. So that's
Yes.
what makes you want to go and make this big decision.
Gotta
But
make it
again, that's,
better.
yeah, perfect example of just having discipline and going, wait, what is the actual focus this month? What are we
Hmm.
focusing on that's going to create a cascading effect that maybe already solves for that? Or maybe we don't even need to solve for that. We just need to ignore our feelings in this example and just let there be an angry customer, do the best that we can to solve for that, and then move on to serving the ones that we can.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
the my one of my partners, we because we're it's very much data over drama. We don't
Yeah.
want to hear the story. We want to, like, the data will tell us the story. There doesn't need to be a story. And
Exactly.
one of my partners, Ryan, he's like, anytime someone's like, it's my feeling or my gut,
Hmm.
he like came up with this acronym. He's like, if anyone says they're making a gut decision, it's, the acronym is gave up thinking. We're not
Yeah.
actually thinking with data.
Exactly, exactly. I think there's, particularly with women in entrepreneurship, there is a big kind of advocacy, I feel, in the industry right now for people to follow their gut and to follow what feels aligned and intuitive, and not to detract from that, because I think there is a part of that in certain
Yeah.
departments in business that makes sense for. But as a business strategy, as a whole, I definitely don't think that is the best way to run a business, because if I had followed my gut on many different occasions, like, it would have led me to the wrong answers. So yeah, I'm 100% on the same page, but I think it's a skill to learn. It's not natural to do that because we're on default mode. Most of us, we just react to life as it comes to us. And if you do
Yeah.
that in business, it's going to feel really, really challenging. So I think that's probably the highest priority skill to master, and then everything under that will become easier.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's sometimes can be hard for, like, the business owners listening. It's hard to look at look at all of your data, and especially if you don't feel good about it already, and then you have to look at it. You're
Yeah.
like accepting, it's like the person that maybe doesn't exercise and they know they're not in the best shape. They're kind of also, you know, a
Didn't
little
want
bit
to get on the
adverse
scale.
to,
Yeah.
going and getting their blood work done, or like stepping on the scale, because they're like, I know it's not going to be good, so I don't even want to look. So I'm just going to pretend it's not a problem.
Yeah. And I think that is, they say personal development and entrepreneurship go hand in hand, because I think it brings out all of the things that you haven't yet solved for, right? It's going to
Yes.
highlight all of your flaws, all of your insecurities. And I think one of them is avoidance. If you are someone that has an avoidant personality type, or a perfectionist, where you can't look at something that isn't perfect, or you can't look at a number that isn't great, then all of a sudden you stop tracking it. Then all of a sudden it's not happening anymore. And so I think, conquering your avoidance, one of the things that I did to do that was just recognize that every single time I'm avoiding something, I'm actually letting it hold power over me. And I forget when it was. It was maybe like 10 years ago. I listened
Mm.
to a podcast, and it was like, you're actually a victim if you're avoiding it. Like, you're saying, I cannot change this thing. It just feels too bad. I'm just going to keep avoiding it. But as soon as you actually take control of that and go, this is the reality. You just got to look at it. Just look at the number. This is the reality. This is where we are now. From that moment on, you can change it. But as long as you keep avoiding it, you got no chance at changing it. But again, easier said than done. And I
Yeah.
think the only way that you learn is just through going through these really uncomfortable situations and learning that you can get to the other side of them, which is business, right? We just solve
Yes.
problems for profit over and over and over again.
Yes, exactly. I have a coach. His name's Jeff Mask, and one of the things he taught me about, like, avoidance. He's like, Cody, what you avoid creates a void in your
Yep.
business or that relationship.
Hmm.
Avoiding giving feedback to a team member that's off track compounds the
Yep.
problems more and more, and then it creates a
Hmm.
void. And so it's that's definitely a challenge. So
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, because obviously you were kind of talking into, using personality tests with, getting, team members.
Yep.
We don't, use them too much with our hiring, but, I definitely see the, the positives there. But what have you, or what are some of the mistakes maybe that you've made in hiring processes, and what are some of the things that you do to, get great talent, for your businesses? Because I find, I'm sure you do as well, when you're talking to business owners, a lot of people really struggle with that. They can't find can't find good people, or there's good talent. No one cares as much as you. People have all those limiting beliefs that they spew out that just are not true. So I'm curious on some of those things that you found to be super helpful.
Yeah, and another skill that I had to learn, because I definitely fell into the category initially of, doing everything myself and thinking that no one did it as good as me, and I have high standards, and if I want it done right, I need to do it myself. And I've had to unlearn all of that and
Yeah.
learn that instead of doing the work, I work through other people. And it's not to say I don't do the work. I definitely still do certain parts of the work,
Yeah.
but you have to learn to work through others. And I think actually learning the coaching side of things actually helps me be a better leader, because that's essentially what you are to your team. You're just coaching them on how to do the task to the degree that you would want it done or that you have done it. And so I think there's so many different parts of it. First is just having a good hiring process. And being able to filter. And this becomes easier to spot the patterns after you've made a few bad hires, right? So you kind of hire someone that doesn't work out, and then you have a little bit of trauma in your mind, and you can spot that person earlier. So I think, like anything, there's reps that come with it. But in the hiring process, being able to identify, like I like using personality tests. Me and my business partner at Member rely pretty heavily on that. And we actually have like a Notion board of different roles in the business and what Myers-Briggs personalities thrive in those roles. Because we've just kind of learned, if we put someone that's maybe a P, which is like the last letter of Myers-Briggs, which typically means that you're more creative, more flowy, versus a J, which is more organized, more A-type and system-oriented in certain roles, they're just not going to thrive, and it would be unrealistic for them to. So we rely on things like personality tests. Obviously, the interview itself, you can kind of start to pick up little patterns about people. And it's funny because we'll do interviews together, and then we'll call one another afterwards and be like, did you pick up on that thing they said? He's like, yeah, he's not going to be the right fit for this role. So it's just noticing little things that only comes through reps. And then the onboarding process, I think, is incredibly important, as I'm sure you know, to set the expectation right off the bat. And this is something I didn't really learn until later on, is that, people think that when you hire someone, they're going to come and create the system. Unless they're a high level hire, most of the time they're not going to do that. You have to onboard them. This is the system. This is how you're going to do your role. This is what success looks like. Oh, and if you need anything, if you're not hitting the metrics in the first 2 weeks, 4 weeks, you come to me. We're going to coach you through it. We're going to get to the other side together. But I think a lot of people, they hire out of pain, where, they're dealing with whatever it is in the business. I need this person to come in and fix it. They don't know how to do the role themselves. And then they put someone in this position, and they're like, why aren't you fixing the problem?
Like duct tape over like a, water coming out of a ship. It's just like, put it on there. Hopefully that fixes it.
Do it, and do it better than I would have. And I'm not even going to tell you how I did it myself.
Yeah.
That's generally kind of how people start hiring. But having good onboarding, setting clear expectations from the jump with someone, so that you're not having to tell them that they're not performing. They're actually coming to you going, oh man, I know I'm meant to be hitting 40%. Like if it's a closer, right? I know I'm meant to hit 40%. I know I'm at 35. Here's my plan to get it up to 40. And I'd love your help with X. Like if you onboard someone the correct way, they know that expectation, and you don't have to come to them and say, hey, you're at 30%. You should be at 40. So I think setting clear expectations, and then knowing how to coach someone when they're not hitting it, and also knowing when to cut your losses and see that they're never going to hit it, or they're not the right personality type to hit it. And I think for most roles nowadays, I hire more for obviously personality first and culture fit first than the skill set, because many skill sets, unless it's high level, can actually be trained. But if someone doesn't have the right attitude for the job and the right culture fit, then it's never going to work, even if they become highly skilled at the role. So those are kind of some of the main things that have helped me. But I'm curious, do you have any? I know that you're systems pro over here. So is there anything that you've done that's worked really well for you?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of everything that you're saying on, the expectation management and, having a plan, so what we talk about doing is like for any role, it's like, getting obviously, clear on, okay, what does success look like for the role? Like, what is the purpose that this role is going to exist? Like, what are the specific problems that this role is going to solve for the business? And, getting that clear in the job description. We talk about having our external job description, which is like what we market out to people. And then we have like an internal one where it's, okay, this is what we actually show that person once they're actually onboarding. And it's like page 2 basically of the JD, where it kind of breaks down more. Okay, now working here, what does success look like a success statement for the role, where it's more of a statement. It's like a little paragraph. It's like, what does success look like doing this role well? First 30, 60, 90 days, like what does winning look like over the first 30, 60, 90 days? It's obviously not all encompassing, because there is some flexibility in that. And then clarity as a whole of like, okay, well, how does this role work within the organization? What are some functions it owns, doesn't own, is more of collaborative within the org. So we try to just like get it super clear of like what winning looks like, what success looks like, and then who to go to for what, so they're just clear what are the KPIs, and so that they just know what path they're running on. And so we're very big on making sure the expectation management is there. And then in our interview process, and more entry level roles, less steps, like higher level roles, more steps to the interview. But we, our first interview is always a quick, cultural. Like we want to check for culture, because to your point, if they're not a good fit culturally, I don't care how good they are at the technical, it's not going to work out. And so we like to, test in that initial for our core values, kind of like, asking questions around our core values and getting a feel for that. Not a feel, but actual data from their answers of asking specific
Wait,
questions.
Cody, you're feeling?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
making business decisions with your feelings?
Yeah. But, it's like getting answers of, how they handle themselves in certain situations that are going to call out things around culture, and how they think around that within our core values. And, have you ever read any of Patrick Lencioni's books?
I haven't, no.
Oh, The Ideal Team Player. Really good
Okay.
book. He
I'll
has
put it on
5
my list.
dysfunctions of a team. Good one. Politics, silos, and turf wars. Another good one. But Ideal Team Player is one that we really frame how we, gauge team members that we already have and new hires. And so this Ideal Team Player framework is, the ideal team player is someone that's humble, hungry, and people smart. And so, we in our hiring process, we try to vet out around those 3, because if we have someone that, isn't humble, but they're hungry and people smart, they're the skillful politician where they try to manipulate their way in the organization. They're hungry, they're out for themselves, and they don't take feedback, which is tough.
Yeah.
But if you have someone that's humble, they're not hungry, but they're people smart. They're the lovable slacker. They're the person that everyone loves in the organization, but everyone asks, what the heck does Bill or Susie do all day? It's like, what do they even do? But everyone loves them. They give everyone high fives and birthday cards and hugs and all of the things. And they're, they're the harder person to fire, because it's like everyone loves them, but they just don't get anything done. And then you have the final one, which is like you have the humble, hungry, and then you have the non-people smart, which is like the accidental mess maker, where it's like they're humble, they're open for coaching, they want to do a good job, but emotional intelligence goes over their head and they say stuff that's offensive and they don't even know and they don't mean it, but that's just they don't know that. And so, we try to fit within, humble, hungry, people smart, and, do our best to core value fit, ideal team player. And then we get into like the technical, where we'll do in our technical interviews, we like to do like just like work, we call them work studies. So it's like if we're hiring an editor, we give them footage. Hey, edit the footage. We want to see, that they actually can do it, not the portfolio that could have just been stolen from other editors and, not actually real. If it's like a finance role, we'll give them like some jacked up QuickBooks, and it's like, here, this is messed
Figure
up.
it out.
Tell us, figure out why it's messed up. Tell us what what you would change to, improve it or whatever. I'm not a finance guy, but it's just, we give them those work studies to then vet out their actual, technical competency that they said that they have. So it's like, all right, show us.
Yeah, we do test projects as well, or trial periods too, which is nice because not only do you see do they have the technical skills, but you also get them in Slack. You get to see how they're working, how do they kind of gel with the team, and they also get to come in and, if they're leaving another job to come and work for you, they then have a lot more confidence, I should say, to come and do that and to leave the other job behind, because you've already dated for a little and now going into it, it's a perfect fit. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think there's a lot to it for sure, but good people make it all work. That's everything. And I think as a younger person, I was very much, the content creator and the face of the business. And I think as an immature leader, you think that it's about you. And the more you grow and the more you develop, you realize it's absolutely not. It's all about the people that work with you and the team that you curate. So hiring, I think, is the number one skill to master. But I think you evolve into that over time.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a character building journey and lots of
Yeah,
mistakes along the way to,
sure.
become good at it. And, my I think my goal, like within like any of the teams that I build, is I'm like, how do I just become as irrelevant to the business as possible through the hiring the right who's, to do these functions
Yeah.
in the business. And, that's our whole thing that we talk about with, our consulting clients is we want to build self-managing high profit companies. And, one of
Yeah.
the biggest areas to be able to do that is through your people and having,
Yep.
the right who's that are able to, do those functions in the business so that, it can be more self-managing. And but it is one of the hardest parts because you have to the thing about leadership too, I think that a lot of people miss is you have to want to be a leader and you have to want to lead people well, because some
Yeah.
people, they're just like they want like the quick fix, and it's like no, you have to like care about your people, like
Yeah.
actually, not
Yeah.
like pretend, but you actually do have to care, because if you
Yeah.
care, then you actually understand what they want. And if you can help them see how they can get what they want through the company's goals, then you can align and, make amazing
Absolutely.
things happen. But,
Yeah.
that's a step.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of CEOs, and I don't even like labels, but
I don't either.
leaders on Instagram, so to speak, that it's performative. They like the label, but they don't like the actual job that comes with it, which is challenging. You have to have hard conversations. You have to be the one that kind of figures out all of the answers to the worst problems in the business that no one else can figure out. And I think people glorify what it is to be a CEO, and they want the accolades or the title that comes with it without the actual grit that it takes to stay in the game. When sometimes it's really challenging, and of course there's highs that go with it as well, and a lot of perks, and there's equal amounts of challenge on the other side of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, that's one of the hardest parts of, being that leader, is like it all at the end of the day falls on you to figure the things out. And, it's like being able to, it's funny. This is probably a year or two ago. I had some friends that were staying in town, and I was like doing like my work calls for a few hours, and it's like we go through like different calls throughout our days, and it's like,
Yeah,
I think on during that time it was like on a call like I had to fire someone, and
yeah,
and then like another call was like a team call, so it's just like going from hard conversation, da da da,
hmm,
emotions are high, and then to the next call, hey guys, how's everyone doing? So good to be here. Da, da, da. And then like the next call is like, all right, now we're doing some review of something, and it's like very
yeah.
serious again. And it's just like you have to like turn into
Become a
this
master of
chameleon.
context switching. Yep.
Yeah, like you have to chameleon through your day
Yeah.
based on, okay, what's this conversation and the context and who's on it, and
Yep.
who do I need to be in this call. And it's like, I had a friend that I remember like through the day, like we were having lunch, and he's like, how do you like just you're having this conversation or letting someone go? He's like, if I had to do that, I think it would ruin my whole day. And I'm like, it does jack me up in the head having to do those conversations. Like I don't like firing hasn't gotten easier for me. Like I from like a process standpoint, like that part's easy because it's just like I know the steps that we need to follow. It's just we just do those steps, but
Yeah.
it's not easy from there is the emotion of like I
Of
care about
course.
this person, and it's like, it sucks and it's not fun, and this is another
Yeah.
human that, we're having to go through this with. But it's like
Yeah.
you just have to do that sometimes.
Well, that's why I think that kind of learning that your emotions can be there, but you don't have to react to them is probably like the paramount skill to actually growing a business, because you are going to feel shitty things and you're going to feel amazing things too.
Yeah.
And that's great. Both of those things can exist, but it shouldn't be the way, like the primary lens that you're making decisions through.
Mm.
Because if you do that, again, if you have to fire someone and it breaks your heart, which it will, then you're never going to want to hire someone again. It's kind of like you get dumped in a relationship, now you never want to be in love again. So that would be the example of making decisions through the lens of your emotions. And I think that what I've learned is that you can have the emotion, like you can have a very, very high level of empathy as a leader and still not act in line with that. Like you still have to have the hard conversation. You still have to do what's best for the business. And I don't think people realize how challenging that is until they get into it. And it's easy to, I think, not feel good about your leader or your boss sometimes when they have to make hard calls, but most of the time they feel just as crappy about it as you do, but it has to be done to protect the entity, which is the business as a whole. So I think you have a lot more empathy for other leaders when you start leading yourself, because it's tricky at times, and it's definitely not an easy role. But again, like, would I have it any other way? Absolutely not. What's the alternative? I would go work at the bank again. That's
Yeah.
definitely not in my trajectory for sure. But it
Yeah.
will point out all of your weaknesses, all of your strengths. It'll test you, but ultimately it'll make you grow too, which is cool.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. It's and that's part of the journey. And so for those listening, it's just, welcome to the never ending journey. It's
Yep,
leadership is a summitless mountain that we consistently get to work on for the rest of our lives. So that's part of
absolutely.
it.
Whenever it's funny because I coach business, and so
Yeah.
whenever I get on coaching calls, I kind of generally start out asking people how they feel. I'm like, how are we feeling today? Elated, stressed out? Which one? And I'll generally have some people that are like, I just made my first sale, this is so exciting. They're like on the elated side of things, and then others are like questioning everything. And I'm like, welcome to entrepreneurship, welcome to life. That kind of is life in general. There's ups and downs, but I just figure if we're going to be in that position regardless, then you may as well go big with it and try and do something pretty exceptional in the process of dealing with all of that too.
Yeah. No, I love it. So what's the, I'd love for you to, share a little bit more about, with what you're building with Member Up. What's the ultimate goal, with that business? Obviously, before we started, you just made a move from California,
Yeah.
Malibu to Florida. What's that kind of look like over the upcoming years of, what you're building with Member Up?
Yeah, and I think when we first started, it was me and my co-founders who are also built big coaching businesses, got together and said, "Hey, we've made a lot of cash flow. Coaching businesses are great for cash flow. Made a lot of cash here. Where do we put that? Like, what is the best, most highest leverage opportunity for us to park that?" And sure, you can do long-term index funds, which we do, but ultimately starting another business where you have a certain level of expertise that you're really passionate about is the best thing. And it's also a model where we can sell it for, depending on how we grow the company and structure it, you can sell software companies for 20x multiples. I even saw one
Yeah.
sold for 77x multiples. Like, you can get, depending on the economy at the time too, like,
Yeah.
it gets pretty out of control. And so naturally we saw the opportunity that was software. And I think, to be honest with you, that was the initial thing. We had this unique set of skills. We knew the industry. We'd use every platform. Who better to build it than us? But we saw, oh, software is kind of the next frontier. You see a lot of people start in coaching and then they build the software behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we actually started with potentially the wrong mentality, which was, we're going to build an asset to sell. And I think in doing that, we recognized that you should never start that way. And I think there was advantages of doing it that way. Like, we knew that we had to build it independent of us. We knew we had to build it in a certain way.
Right.
And we had a clear vision for it. But at the same time, Elon kind of gave us something to think about when he came out, and he's like, you should never, ever, ever build a company to sell it. And, listening to him and a couple other people, it hit home that you shouldn't. First and foremost, you should be building a company that you love, that is the best thing on earth, that serves a whole bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was embedded within it, but it wasn't, I don't think it was the impetus for starting it.
Yeah.
And so now, now we're less attached to, we got to hit this growth amount in this timeline to get to this exit. And now we're more focused on, because I think that's kind of a lagging indicator. We're more focused on the leading indicator, which is, we got to build the best product possible that we absolutely love using, that helps the most people.
Yeah.
And obviously have strategy included with that, but it's become more fulfilling also, I think, through building it that way.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something new to build and sell. And at a certain point, money doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. It's actually
Yeah.
the thing that you're proud to build and work on and to serve people with. So that was our initial goal, was like, let's build a sellable asset. But now it's less, and it was always a part of it as well. But now it's more about, let's build the best product on earth that we wish we had when we were building our businesses. And, I actively use the product too. And that's kind of one of the cool things about running coaching still, is I get to be our best customer at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, I'm using it every day. And so any of the headaches that come up for me, immediately get fed to the
Yeah.
dev team, and there's a lot quicker of a feedback loop with it. So kind of doing both things and being a customer at the same time has kept me closer to, let's just build the best product out there. But that's kind of the goal with it right now is, yes, it's still something that in the future we'd be open to selling, but at the same time, we're just working to build the best product for coaches, creators, business owners, membership platform, community owners, to bring everything together. So many people, they have like 5, 6 different platforms. They got like their community on Slack, they got their courses on Kajabi, they've like Zapiered everything together. It's an absolute nightmare for them to manage. It's a nightmare for their customers. It looks terrible. It looks like it's from like the 1980s. And so we just made something that was really, really simple, really beautiful. You can customize it in like 5 minutes. And our big focus right now to differentiate is on helping business owners with the one thing that we all want more of or struggle with the most in the beginning, which is sales. Most people, like particularly if you're hosting a course or a program on, let's say, Kajabi, that program lives somewhere on the internet out on its lonesome, and you have to drive traffic to it. You either have to pay for traffic, you have to be really good at organic content, but it's on you to get traffic to that product. And, I think when school came in, school kind of changed that model a little bit. And I'm sure you're familiar with what Alex and Sam are doing with school. Yep. Yeah. And now they had like a little bit of a network effect built in where everything was connected and you could find and join other communities more like a social media platform. And although, I think that has so many advantages, there's still so much that you can do with that model to make it more beautiful, more customizable, which that doesn't have just yet. So I think they kind of pioneered something over there, and now we're at the stage where we can build off of that, and that's kind of what we're building into MemberUp as well, is that network effect so that our creators can grow quicker and get discovered and actually have more impact with their work too.
I love that. And it's interesting, because there's a lot of people that that they talk about. It's like, oh yeah, I'll always build to sell, versus then Elon's over here like, no, like build something that, you're super proud of. And so I think finding that like happy medium of like building the business structure in a way that it can be sellable, but, also building the thing that, you're really proud of and that you enjoy to build. So I want to ask you this, because there's a lot of people, because you mentioned co-founders. Let's talk partnerships for a minute. Like what are some of the things that you give advice to people to make sure that they set their partnerships up in the right way? Because a lot of people, the way they start their partnerships is like, hey, best friend, you want to make money, me too, and all of our skills are the same, so let's just start a business together, and you'll do stuff and I'll do stuff and we'll make money, and it's like that's how most people just start partnerships. But I'm sure you've had some painful lessons, as I have in partnerships. So what are some of the things that you recommend to people to make sure that they're setting those up the right way, whether it's structure, alignment of responsibilities? What are some of those things that you give tips to people on?
Yeah, and I think I've made all the mistakes that you've just mentioned, and I'm still probably learning in many ways on how to do this the best way possible. And, structuring a software company that's like a C Corp is a little bit different when you have partners and investors to like a traditional 50-50 LLC or something like that. But in general, I think having complementary skill sets is key, because you'll see it all the time, particularly in, the coaching industry specifically, but in lots of businesses where you have the operator and then you have the marketer, and they're complementary skill sets. The operator is generally not good at being the face of the business if it needs one, or, getting the word out about it, or they're deep in building the product. They just suck at marketing and sales. And then you have the marketer salesperson. And that's like a really dynamic duo. Like they do really well together. But I think it's knowing, what role you're ultimately going to play, and then finding someone that's the yin to your yang, not just in terms of tangible skill sets, but also in terms of, okay, well, maybe, going back to personality tests, if I were more naturally an F, meaning I make decisions with my feelings, that's okay. There are plenty of successful Fs in business, but partnering yourself with an operator who's a T, and having them be the one that makes the structural decisions for the company, so that you can benefit from one another's unique gifts. Because Fs are really creative. Fs are great at being magnetic with customers and customer-facing roles. Not so great with making strategic decisions and ultimately like prioritizing things. So I think just knowing what is going to be complementary to you, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, knowing what value you can bring as well, and having regular checkpoints, because you'll shift and change over the lifetime of the partnership too. in the beginning you might start out one way, but if you don't check in with each other, and I've been through this, I built a company with someone for 8 years, and you change so much over
Yeah,
8 years, especially in your young
absolutely.
20s.
Yeah.
And we didn't know any better. We didn't have checkpoints with one another. Not regularly scheduled ones at least. And so things were unsaid. And then over time, you realize that the idea of value in one person's mind of what someone should be contributing and vice versa was just drifting apart. And then ultimately, you lead to, okay, let's dissolve this and do something else. So I think having an initial awareness of what value each person's going to bring, clearly defined roles and responsibilities, but also regular checkpoints, because you will shift and change. And in one season, you might be the better operator. In another season, something happens in your life. Now, okay, I'm going to take over that side of things, and you're going to focus on X thing. So just having checkpoints and being able to have a really hard conversation, I think, is key to it as well. We actually did that in Member Up before we started it. We all sat around a fire in my backyard in Malibu, and we're like, let's have the hard conversation. What happens if you die? Does your wife get the equity? What happens would we want that? Like, we went through, it's what is it? Death, disability.
The 5 Ds: death,
Yeah.
disability, disinterest, drugs, and like I can't remember all of them, but
I think we only had 3. We didn't get into drugs, so maybe that was something we left off. But no, we definitely went through 3 of them and had the hard conversation. And ultimately, we did have one partner that, their life changed over the course of building. And because we'd had that conversation, it was so much cleaner then. Like, we solved it in a day or two. On how they would exit. And so I think just having the hard conversation ahead of time and not being so starry-eyed like we are in, our first romantic relationships or our first business partnerships, that like, it's going to be great forever. Because that was definitely me in the beginning. I didn't know any better. It can be amazing in the beginning, and you just don't know what's going to transpire. So being able to just have the hypothetical conversation up front, then you know how it's going to play out if and when that does happen. Because most of the time it's when, not if.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of mine. But have you had any, things come up for you that have been really helpful in creating better partnerships?
Yeah, from lots of financial pain and suffering, we've found things that work. One of those is, people were like, have a buy-sell agreement, have some like general buy-sell terms. So like, we've had that. And then, this was a few years ago, we had a partner in one of the businesses, and it's like, great, I'm glad we have a buy-sell agreement. But then we actually went to execute on that buy-sell agreement for this partner, and it wasn't determined on how the valuation was going to be determined. So they were doing one valuation method. We were trying to do a different. Now we didn't agree. Now it took months longer, more pain and suffering, more expenses. And so, one of the things that we do is we just every year now we reestablish what the value of the company is, and we have predetermined what the actual buyout would be and predetermined terms of how that buyout would actually be completed, and it's just revised every year. And so if mid-year it's like, hey, this is what's going to happen, it's like there's no discussion. Like, yeah, there's could be frustration and pain and conversations of, oh, well, I don't agree because I feel like we're on a better trajectory. It's like we all co-agreed that this is how we were going to do this, though. So that's like, this is what we're doing, So that was one of the things was, that the way that the company's actually valued more clearly defined, not just a boilerplate template from the attorney of buy-sell provision in there. It's like actually getting more clear. So that's one of the things. The other thing that we do too is, we have a responsibility matrix. So like you mentioned, like getting clear on roles and responsibilities. So we fill out, before like the partnership begins, a responsibility matrix that basically is like, okay, names and who's accountable for which functions. And that becomes like the, I think, appendix or whatever in the actual operating agreement. And so it's like, okay, if people aren't doing what they're accountable for in the responsibility matrix, here's how the cure period will work of, giving notice, how long of, for them to amend it. And if they don't amend it, okay, now we move to buy sell, which is what's in our agreement, predetermined price, and this is what's going to happen. So getting more clear on those things has been, super helpful. And then, like you said, having those upfront conversations, like this, that cleaning company that I bought into, there's, partners there. And, like we sat down and went through, I just have a kind of a list of questions of like, hey, like what's a successful beginning, middle, and end look like to you? What's
Mm-hmm.
if we were to separate, midway through, how would we want to dissolve this?
Yeah.
If you just stopped working or I stopped working and weren't doing what I was supposed to, how would you want to have that handled? How would we want to have those conversations? And then where do you want to be financially? And as well, it's like,
Yeah.
certain ventures I've been a part of where certain partners are like, if we get to this target, I'm happy. And like, I don't think I'd want to work more. I would be very content there versus other ones is like, okay, well, we want to go way further. So it's like all of those things, have
Yeah.
to be aligned. And then newer ones, core value alignment of the company. Cause I've had partnerships where it's like, we have company core values that hold our team to. And then I've had
Mm-hmm.
partners that they themselves wouldn't actually uphold those values. And then the team's like, well, that freaking dude contradicts the values. So how are we going to handle it? And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God, so it's just there's so much there. But the more of those upfront conversations that you have, I found to be helpful, and just think about everything bad that can happen. What if we're short on capital? How are you going to
Yeah.
handle that? Oh, if
Yeah.
I have to bring more money in, am I going to get more equity?
Yeah.
Or if you're not going to bring it, so you think it's like having those conversations,
It's hard.
and
Yeah. That's why I say entrepreneurship, it's going to bring out all of your insecurities, all of your flaws, all of those things, because you can't go into those conversations if you're avoidant, if you have, fear of failure and you don't even want to talk about it. So you have to be able to have the hard conversations. But I think on the positive side, what I will say is I don't think that doing business by yourself is the best way to go. As hard as it is to find and align with great partners, it is so immensely valuable when you find them. Like I have that with my co-founder at MemberUp, Ross. He's amazing. He's like my best friend as well, and we are so aligned on values in life and also in business. Just the way we make decisions, everything is so smooth. And when I think about the ultimate success of the business, doing it with someone that you also have this great relationship and you can support one another, like that is winning. To me, that is a part of success. And I think it's no secret, Y Combinator, like the tech incubator, they rarely accept solo founders because it is so rare that you can actually succeed as a solo founder. Because imagine just all of the responsibility ultimately coming to you, the amount of
it's tough.
persistence and grit that you have to have as one person. And that's assuming that your life's never going to change through the duration of the company as well. What if my partner in my early 20s, we found out he had cancer, and naturally I could be so driven to run a company, but then something like that in your life happens, and the value of having a co-founder now is exponential because they can support you through those times and pick up responsibilities and vice versa. So I think as challenging as we've made it to sound to have a partner, I also think that it is incredibly valuable when you find the right ones, because it's very rare that one human is going to have all of everything you need in their
Yeah,
mind. And
yeah.
even if you are incredibly talented and great at making decisions, having someone to just call you out on your stuff every now and then, you can get caught in a loop of thinking and think that you're so
Yeah.
correct on
And
something.
you don't have a team that's calling you out on it because that sometimes you have team members that they do give good constructive feedback, but like there's certain things that a partner will tell you that your team's just not going to tell you. And,
Exactly.
it's different. And, I,
Yeah.
I, I totally agree on that. Like my most successful ventures have always been in partnerships. And,
Yeah.
it's funny because there's people out there that they say like partnerships are stupid. I am actually a fan of Dave Ramsey and his like leadership podcast. I don't know if you've ever
Okay.
listened to his
I've
leadership
only seen
stuff.
the clips here and there, but I haven't been like an avid listener or anything. But what's his
Yeah.
philosophy?
Yeah, so I mean, so in leadership, he has a ton of great leadership stuff. I'm not as
Okay.
much of a fan of his financial, it's just like, all right, Dave, like, got it, great, but
Never
I
eat out, Cody. Never eat out. That's what
yeah,
Dave says.
yeah, rice and beans,
Yep.
the whole thing. But I don't lean into his financial philosophies, but leadership. There's a lot of great stuff that he talks about on his podcast that I do enjoy. But the thing he does talk about, he's like, the only ship that won't sail is a partnership. He like literally tries to
Oh,
discourage
interesting.
anyone from doing a partnership out,
Huh.
and 100% of the time he's like, bad idea, don't
Hmm.
do it, terrible. So
Interesting.
it's funny because there's people out there like him that are just like never do it, but
Hmm.
it's like I look at the most successful ventures I've been a part of, it's been in different partnerships. And,
Yeah.
to your point, it's those yin and yangs where people bring, these amazing things to the table. And like for me,
Hmm.
I'm not a marketing sales guy. Like my soul starts to, compress inside of me if I have to be involved in marketing and sales.
Yep.
But, my soul comes to life when I'm like, in ops and team building and
Yeah.
strategy and, how do we structure this to
Yeah.
build, to scale and,
Yeah.
but having those people that complement those skill sets just make business a lot more fun too, because
Totally.
I am doing the scale with pros, like my consulting, as solo founder of it. And
Hmm.
the side that, like, on the marketing and sales side, I'm like, I hate it. Like, I have to like oversee like things going on. I'm like, man, like, this isn't
Yep.
fun to have to do.
Exactly.
And but it's
Even if
like
you
you yeah.
Yeah, even if you can do it all, it's not necessarily the best recipe for
Yeah.
living a great life either. And I think I do have kind of skill sets in both sides. Am I the best in both? Maybe you could make the argument not so much, but I can go either way. I can lean either way. But for me, it's like, if I'm spread that thin across all departments, are they ultimately going to thrive to
Yeah.
the degree that they could? And also, when we win, when we're on the yacht at the end of the day, do I want to be cheersing myself? No, I want to be with friends. Exactly. And I think, business takes up so much time as well. Like,
Yeah.
if you're really trying to build something big, there's lifestyle businesses, which I've also run, but building something like a software company, it takes a lot of your time. And so for me, I'm like, do I want to do that by myself, or do I want to actually create a lifestyle where I get to hang out with my best friends in my business and build something incredible together? And sure, not every single person that we work with is like our besties.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it just makes it a lot more enjoyable as well, to be able to build with great people. And the people that call you out on your BS, like Ross to me all the time, has got no issue calling me on my stuff. And I appreciate that because it helps me grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's so many benefits of doing it with a partner for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to ask one last question before we wrap up. So if you rewind in time, going back to yourself, beginning your entrepreneurial journey, what would be one of the things that you would give yourself for, business advice specifically to have helped you be more successful, maybe faster?
Oh, good question. What would have helped me be more successful faster? Honestly, probably something that we've touched on a little bit, which is build with team.
Mm.
I think I held on to doing everything myself for far too long because, like I said, I have been able to pick up various different skill sets, which is a blessing and a curse. Because then you think, well, I can do it all. I'll just keep doing it all. But then
Oh
at the end
yeah.
of the day, you only have a certain amount of hours in the day to do it all, and you're just limiting yourself. So actually learning the power of leverage earlier, I think,
Mm.
would have helped me be more successful earlier. Um, yeah, I definitely held on to doing things myself for far too long. So to leverage working with amazing people and learning the skill of hiring so that you can actually attract and keep amazing people as well. Probably would have got me a lot further, a lot quicker, and invest in crypto earlier.
Have to throw that one in.
Exactly, exactly. No, if I could go back in time, definitely invest in crypto when I was younger. But no, what about you? Is there something on your journey that you would tell your younger self?
Man, I I would have told myself that the skills that you have are not lesser than. And the way, I guess the way that I would explain that is like in my early 20s, everyone online was just like, if you're not a marketing and sales freaking wizard, you're
Hmm.
basically worthless as an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
And so like I like lived in this like weird space for like a lot of my early 20s where I felt lesser than because I was like, I don't really even like the marketing and sales, like, but I love building a team, and I could build a sales team, and I could build a marketing team, and I could manage those people, but I hate the stuff that
yeah,
they do every day. Like, that's like not fun for me, you
yeah,
know? And so like I thought that, I was going to not do well in business at times because I'm like, I don't naturally have that tendency to want to market and sell. and,
Yeah.
and there's different types of sales too. Like I love selling new team members on the vision to come work for us and like what we're going to build, what it means for them, what the end result's going to be. I do enjoy, selling companies on, partnering with me or, letting me invest into their companies, like that type of sale. I don't like
Yeah.
selling like a widget. Like I don't want to sell this widget, or I don't want to sell a coaching program, or I don't want to,
Yep.
it's like that type of sales, not
Yep.
not my jam.
Yeah.
But that was something that it weighed on me for years in my early 20s, and it was like this strong
Mhm.
insecurity because I felt like this imposter of like I'm just a guy that likes building teams, and I like operations, and I like systems, and I like strategy, but I don't like marketing and sales. And who is it on social media, telling you what you need to be good at? Anyone that's on social media is just like these marketing and sales influencers, and so like I just always felt that I wasn't good enough in my early 20s. And like now, knowing what I know now, I'm like, man, like these skills are extremely valuable and actually help create scale in companies. And
Yeah.
it's really a lot of the sauce that works. Like obviously marketing and sales is important, but it's like
Yeah.
recognizing the value of the skills that I've had more of that
Yeah.
towards. And so just like I would go back and tell myself like, hey, continue refining leadership, team building, operations, the way that, strategic planning, build
Yep.
how you structure a company, like all of those things, like just go all in on that. And you don't
Yeah.
need to be the expert in those other areas. And so that's what I would tell myself, because that would have saved myself a lot of emotional suffering, I think.
Yeah, and I think ironically, I just tweeted about this the other day. I was like, people glorify marketing and sales, but actually, ops and finance is the secret sauce, because I actually recently consulted with a company that was doing 700K a month in revenue, crazy good at marketing, not so great at the finance part of it, right? The margins were not there, and it was leading them to not even love what they do anymore because, they were just burnt out from this
Yeah.
perpetual loop of, only taking home such a tiny amount. So I think that, ops and finance is the mature approach that you see, where it's like, that's actually how you build something beyond yourself. That's actually how you build something really big. And sales and marketing is, yes, it's absolutely hugely
Yes,
necessary, but it's
absolutely.
only going to get you so far. I've seen countless people that have amazingly engaged Instagram accounts, and they have warm leads coming to them all the time, and they make a lot of money. But then on the back end, again, they're
Like
just
falls off a
stressed
cliff.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're stressed out because the turnover of staff is so high. They got to keep putting butts in seats. Everything's a mess. Then they're constantly launching because they don't know how to create systems that scale and are evergreen. So
Just a new offer every 4 to 6 months, because just like get another cash grab of something, because like the last thing, now people are upset,
exactly,
so got to rebrand and restart.
exactly. So as someone that probably started very heavy on the marketing and sales side myself, and has kind of transitioned more over to the finance and operations side, I definitely agree with you. And anyone that's listening that has that skill set, that is the skill set to master. I think it's one of the most valuable skill sets. You just got to partner with someone that has the marketing and sales side,
Yeah.
or use that skill set to build out a marketing and sales team yourself, and you're
Yes.
golden. So
Yes.
it's definitely not less than, in my view, they're equal. Or,
Yes.
on one hand, I could make a case for them, actually ops and finance being a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, I think it's at certain stages. It's like up to about $1 million a year. It's like you can just brute force marketing and sales, but if you want
Yeah,
to keep scaling profitably,
yeah.
that's the key, profitably to multiple seven figures and then eight figures. It's like ops and finance starts to really matter.
Yeah. I think it needs to be shouted from the rooftops a little bit more. So I like your answer a little better than mine. That's for sure. But no, I think both of them make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to share. It was super fun, being able to talk through, with all the success that you've had, and along
Likewise.
the way in your journey. And where do you want people to find you? Whether they're interested in Member Up, or whether they're wanting to follow you on social media. Where should they go? And we'll make sure it ends up in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Cody. It's been great as well. Anyone can find me on Instagram at AmySangster53. I also have a YouTube channel, or you can check out Member Up at memberup.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Amy, thank you so much, and for everyone listening, we'll see you guys in the next episode.